Hi there, I'm John from CNCKing.com, and today we'll make a custom steel handrail. Due to the size of this steel metal railing, which is roughly 90 inches by 30 inches and 30 inches tall, I don't have it with me and I can't really hold it. The weight was probably around 150 to 200 pounds. It was really heavy. I was astonished myself when everything was welded together, because you got to keep in mind it's not just the metal, it's also all the metal that you add when you do the welding. Now I used two processes to produce this handrail. The reason why I used those two specific processes was because I don't have gas cylinders here in the shop, and as a result, so I used flux core arc welding as the first one, and that's why you see me with the little orange wand, and that is basically a mini version of this that comes in rolls and shoots out. Now this is an electrode, and this is the second process I would use. So the first process is very efficient for speed. I really enjoy doing it just for tack welding more than anything else, because tack welding with this is definitely possible, but it's easier just to press a little button and tack weld things temporarily and then go through it with the real stuff. At least that's my opinion on it. So what the flux core does, I'll show you my test plate here. So this is a flux core. I left the slag on there just for fun. So it makes a little weld like this here, and it's more even, so to speak, and I could have more control over exactly where it goes. Unlike this, where I have to strike the arc and start to get it going, and as soon as you have something really nice, you have to stop. And this here is what an electrode makes. This is a 1/8 7018 electrode, and you can see in the back how the penetration profile is pretty much the same. The thickness of this plate is 12 gauge, or roughly 1/8, and that's roughly the wall thickness of the tubing. The tubing is 0.12, and 1/8 is 0.125, so it's almost the same. So whenever I was doing tack welding, I knew I had penetration because I did a quick test, and whenever I was doing the full welds on all the pieces, I definitely had penetration. I could actually see it, and in a couple spots here and there, I would actually get a blowout. So I'd actually go through the tube by accident. Then I'd spend about half an hour fixing that by slowly building them back up the metal and fixing things up that way. So let's take a look at the first step, which is a smaller part of the handrail. The reason why I'm using a chop saw to cut this tubing is because I ordered it at 24 feet long, and never regretted it. It's perfect, because the problem is you order some of this stuff and you order it like cut in half 12 feet or whatever, and then you always need that like 3 inches, and you end up with a lot more wasted material. So generally, no matter what I buy in the shop, I try to buy the longest I possibly can, because more often than not, something happens where you just need that extra 1 or 2 inches, and because it's pre-cut, you're sort of screwed and you have to go get some more. Now what I'm doing here is, after I squared everything off, I put all the spindles, but if you notice my hand, I'm actually moving a little piece of wood between each spindle each time I do this. And that is a laser cut jig I made so that the positioning of the spindles was completely brain dead. I did not have to think about it, so the height was perfect and the spacing was perfect in one shot. And I found, whether it's metalworking, woodworking, or whatever, the more you keep your brain out of the process, especially if it's repetitive like these spindles, or if you're off by a half an inch, you will notice it. If you try to check your brain out the door and you do it this way, you won't have any problems. Some people use a tape measure over and over again, and I just find that more confusing than anything, because you just go numb after a while. This is not a lot of spindles. I actually did that to test out this process for the larger one. So that's why you see me making the smaller one first, because I figure if I'm gonna have any issues, if I screw this thing completely up in every possible way, I only screwed up this much material instead of 3 times more material on the larger one. As luck worked out, I actually had no problems making this. It was dead square, dead everything. It was great. The process proved itself pretty well as well. Now the other thing is, you'll notice that now I'm doing the inside edges of all the spindles, and that's more aesthetic more than anything else. And the reason for that is because I have full welds on both sides right off the bat. Just the tack welds were holding this in perfectly. So I have full welds on top of that. And then I have welds on the inside. So even if the welds on the inside were not the best, they're not really necessary to hold the spindles there. Although I do know I have full penetration for everything because I could actually see the metal melting under the process. And that's a pretty cool thing about welding. You have instant feedback when you screw up, and you have instant feedback while you're making it. If you're going too fast, too slow, it's really quite a fascinating trade to get into, and I really enjoy that. For the aesthetics afterwards, I ground down all the welds that were protruding along the frame of the railing, and that just makes it look nice. And when you put paint, it gives it a more seamless look. I prefer doing that than leaving the full welds there. And when you do that, you can also see if your welds were any good or not. And of course, these were totally fine welds. I had very, very little porosity. Whatever was there was easily fixed. So here's the first part of the railing. The second part would actually be this times 3. So if you think of it as an L bracket, you have this as the L, and then all the rest downwards. And of course, downwards is 3 of these, essentially. Now the spacing in here is roughly 3.5 inches. And for that, I used actually jigs that I laser cut. And it worked wonderfully. I didn't have to worry about measurements, I didn't have to worry about anything. I found, no matter what I build or how I build it, I find if I could dump things down to a certain point, it works great because there's less chance of an error. For this here, I just had to line it up like this, and it held it at the correct height off of here. And it also made sure the position here was accurate, and it was dead accurate for everything. I used Flux core initially for the initial tack welding just because it's a very fast process. I didn't want to screw around with an electrode trying to get it going. And then what I did after that is everything was electrode work. Now you might think that's kind of a lot of work instead of using, let's say, solid wire or other sort of processes. I don't have solid wire in the shop yet. I don't have a gas system set up yet at this point. So as a result, my options were flux core or electrode. And I chose electrode because it's actually a lot cleaner. Flux core is absolutely horrible. Gasless flux core, you end up with a lot of splatter everywhere and everything. It's just horrendous. And the electrode, beautiful results. The weld from an electrode actually looks better than a weld from a flux core. I could tell right away which was which. Now, these are all solid welds all the way across. And I also decided to weld on the inside just because the seam looks kind of bad. If you're going to have something that's welded, you want it to look nice at all angles. So it's more of an aesthetic weld, but I was definitely getting penetration even though my angles were sort of a little bit questionable when I was doing it because of spacing. I definitely have some hold there, so I'm not even worried about that. But worst comes to worst, if these are purely 100% aesthetic, just the weld on one side of it with the electrode will hold it in place. I could definitely see the metal melting and reforming while I was welding it. So I know it's really, really good. This is incredibly solid. 1/8 wall is actually a great idea. Initially the spec was at 0.8 or 0.9 inch. And I had a feeling that I would end up using an electrode for this. So I decided just to spend a little bit more money, get 1/8 wall. And with the 1/8 wall, it worked wonderfully for the electrode. Now, for the electrode, I had to make sure that it was hot. And so I have a rod oven. So I put them in the rod oven. They're nice and warm, or really, really hot. You can't touch them with your hands. And then what you do, you have a welder with a hot start. And just with that, it was just like butter. It was amazing. Using all the lessons I learned from the smaller handrail version of the L, I decided to start making the bigger one right away. And I learned a lot of lessons from the little one, and I learned even more from the larger one. It's the first time I make a handrail, and I really enjoyed the process. Cutting it was a lot more specific this time around, because I knew how much give I had to give in order to have just enough space for the weld, but also stay within my plus or minus 1/8 goal whenever I was manufacturing this or fabricating this handrail. Another thing I never did before was actually weld outside. And again, using a gasless process that's shielded, both with the flux core and with the shielded metal arc welding, just absolute wonderful results. I was really surprised by that because in college, I'm always inside of a lab in a little booth doing this kind of stuff, and to actually work outside in the environment and, actually produce something really nice. I had really, really nice welds. So I was very proud of that when I was making this here. Now I do have as you can see, a plastic table. And maybe that's not the smartest thing, but for that process there, I was just using Flux core, which introduces very little heat to the overall project, so I wasn't worried about it. I would never use a plastic table for the process you see here, which is the full welds, because then this railing gets really, really hot. And I'm also trying to spread out my welds so that I get as very little heat affected zones as possible, as little warping and twisting and all that kind of stuff that happens when you do welding. And there's no way around that. Now, the reason why I'm working outside is because I had no room in the shop for this large part here. And so I just set up my tent in the back alley, and I went ahead and did all the processes I needed to do to get this done. Now, the other fun thing is I was able to do this at night as well. It was around 35 degrees or 100 Fahrenheit outside. So I was just sweating buckets when I was making this thing. And then when night time came, I figured, well, hopefully it's a little bit cooler. It really wasn't, because there's a storm coming, and it was just as hot at night as during the day. But it was kind of neat because the light from the welding illuminates everything. There's no real difference day or night for that process there. And again, I'm just going through the handrail, welding everything as I see it. So when it comes to welding something, it takes quite a bit of time to be able to get a sort of an instinct or a feeling for it. After about 1.5 years of doing it, I'm starting to get that. And that really helped out tremendously for this, because a lot of the welds for the spindles, I could not see the weld pool because the rod was in the way. Now, I prefer to go this way than backhand. I prefer to go forehand just because I find it more comfortable for these kind of things. So this guy here is actually pretty heavy. If you're wondering about how much rod I ended up using for this project, or this one specifically, I used about, I'd say, maybe 12 pounds of 70/18 1/8 rods. And for the other one, maybe about maybe 3-4 pounds of rods. So there is a lot of weight added to it. And you got to remember, this is tubing, and the tubing is 1/8 wall to begin with. So it's really, really heavy. It's actually a pretty good thing, I think, to have something heavy like this inside of a house, because it means that, you know, kids pulling on the railing and all that kind of stuff, well, it's not going to budge on them. Especially here, you don't see it yet. But the next step for me is to use the plasma cutter to make caps for this. Now it's reversed. So what the caps will do in this orientation is that they'll give the customer a way to screw it in to the flooring. This will go around the stairs. So that's the next step for this project here. There's so many ways of sticking this handrail where it needed to go, but I thought the easiest way, and the customer obviously agreed, was just to make plaques, weld them to the bottom of the columns, and make screw holes and screw it right to the floor. And it worked actually really, really well for that process. So there's a reason why I have trouble throwing out scrap when it comes to plasma cutting and laser cutting and water jet cutting. And the reason for that is because often I have to do like little plates like this here, and even smaller ones like this, especially now that I do more and more welding. And what these are used for are caps. So if you're using tubing, for instance, so you end up with an end like this that's open. And what I like to do is cut out these little sort of things, and you put them on there and you weld all the way around, and therefore you have a solid tube that you don't have water and other stuff go into. So it just aesthetically looks a lot nicer, and actually functional even outside. It's a far better tube, or far better final product that you end up giving to the customer. Now, if you're wondering about how I get all these dimensions and all this kind of stuff, it comes down to this. So these are actual drawings that I use for this project here. And I have all the dimensions of every aspect of it. So that when I'm actually building it, I actually have a reference for all the measurements that I'm putting throughout this thing. And that's very important because I'm trying to be within an eighth any one given area when I'm building it. There's a bit of give here and there just because it's metal and you have heat distortion and a bunch of other issues to contend with. But if you can be within an eighth, you know, everywhere, that's wonderful. And it's impossible to do that if, for instance, this one here is, let's say, 32 inches. So if you have this 32 and this 33, and then you try to weld it together and try to fix it, it's just about impossible to do. But if you have everything dead on and you do a lot of, you know, dry runs and that kind of stuff, you can actually be pretty accurate with the welding. Now there's, of course, some give and take here and there that you have to account for. This is not woodworking, this is metalworking. But generally, I'm pretty happy with the results. When it came time to install the handrail in the house and get everything organized properly, we found out that there was a little bit of a twist in the finished handrail, just because it was so long and there's so many areas where you have heat affected zones. No matter how you spread it out, a handrail will never be totally dead straight. It doesn't matter if you have a fixture table or what have you. There's always a little bit of, give here and there. So when I was building, I was trying to stay within 1/8, plus or minus, and I achieved most of that. But over the whole 90 inches, you can see there's a little bit more of like a concave or convex, depending on which way you're looking at it, shape to the top rail. The top rail was the one that was solid all the way across. All the other ones were proper. So what happened with that is actually we just put it on the ground with 2 wooden blocks and ran over it with the car. And the car, it was initially like this, ran over the car, it would bend all the way that way. You take the car off and it would just go absolutely dead perfect. So there's a couple ways of fixing that kind of stuff, but the car seemed to make the most sense. And it actually proved that what I welded actually would stay together. There were no welds that were broken. Everything looked totally fine. No stretching, no nothing. It was perfect. So that also proves that I had proper penetration everywhere. Because if you're ever going to have metal break on you, it won't be where the weld is, it'll be right next to the weld. And it'll be because there's some weakness there caused by the heat affected zones, and I had none of that. So if you're looking for custom handrails, yeah, we make that too. I don't know if I would ship it right to your door, but we can definitely try sending in the components and go from there. So if you're looking for custom metalwork or welding, contact me at CNCKing.com. We'll make it for you and ship it right to your door.